Thank you so much, everyone, for coming for this very exciting episode of CORE Show Me the Money, the April 2025 CORE meeting, Succeed Through Network Marketing, or Market and Financial Forecasts. So thanks to our hosts. I don't know if they can hear us. Thank you, Crystal, for serving us. Thanks to Jim and Karen for setting this backspace up, especially for us. It's really great to have our own private space and not have to fight over the bar crowd. And thanks to our presenters, Cynthia Laura Molina from the City of Raton, the Community and Economic Development Director. And if anyone here is interested in hosting or has an idea for one of these, for future ones, and you're like, could you do a topic about this or that, please just, put a bug in one of our ears and we'll make it happen in future months. Who else? And we also want to thank our Trinidad partners for being here. We have Pat here, the Trinidad Chamber, Trinidad Las Animas Chamber, or now is it officially the...
It's official in Colorado. It's about a week away from official in New Mexico, the Calexico Alliance.
Okay, so the Calexico Alliance that will encompass Huerfano County, Las Animas County, and Colfax County. All right. Historically connected communities. Just remember, everyone, no one can hear you in future you. Future viewers cannot hear you if you're not on the mic. So just remember to get that passed or to repeat the question or answer. All right. And also we have folks from the Emergent campus here from Trinidad. So thanks for coming over the hill. We have a city commissioner here. Thanks, Lindy Schuster. We have a county commissioner here. Thanks, Cy Trujillo. We have Grover Tone representatives here. Who else? Well, David, who are you? You're just your own business now. Conserve First. And remind me who you're with again? Yes.
I'm
Tracy Wall.
A bunch of different things, but I'm from Trinidad. I come from Tourism Gallery. And
Okay.
I have my own company, True Girl Productions.
Okay, True Girl Productions, right? Okay, Tracy. Well, thanks for coming. Wow, and you and Jean Delicio also coming from Trinidad. We're like, wow, we're really Trinidad heavy tonight. Yeah, thanks for making the drive in this rainy weather. All right. Did I forget? Oh my gosh! And I forgot our beloved city manager, Rick Mestis. Technically, and Walt. I said Grow Raton. Well, I said Grow Raton. Oh, and
Anybody can't make it over the pass, I've got rooms at the hotel.
And Walt, thanks for coming as well. Actually, I got to skip that. I was going to talk to you about that, and then we did do it. All right, so we're going to move on to Cynthia's presentation.
Thank you, and we will try to get it on the screen as well. There we go. I just want to give a special thank you to Ann Tice, who is really committing so much to the development, the professional development, the community and economic development of this city. So can we give her a hand? And she gets here early, she sets up the cameras, gets everything working out, so just a lot of gratitude there. All right, so we're going to talk about some heavy stuff tonight. It's thick as pudding, and it's also delicious like pudding. So we're going to have a good time with this. What I would ask is if I accidentally slip into like business buzzwords or something, can you guys say, I don't know what the frickin' heck you're talking about? And then I'll try to use plain language. All right, so we're going to talk about three things, but before we get into those three things, we're going to do a quick recap of some of the past core meetings that we've had, because we're building momentum here. We're building some skill sets. And the good news for anyone who hasn't been to a prior core meeting or missed one or two is these are videotaped. In fact, the last one would be getting all kinds of hits on LinkedIn were it not for the fact that I didn't get back with Ann with my edits on it. So my fault, I fall on the sword on that. And all of these will be posted. Many of these events have handouts that you can use for your business. And so why not ask for them if you hear something you like, and particularly tonight, because there's a lot of tools involved. So over the last 3 months, we talked about we talked about 6 things so far. By the end of tonight, we'll have 9 things. So on the February mixer, we talked about the importance of having the internet just flooded with Raton branded and Trinidad branded, regionally Colfax County branded information, because AI is using the internet so much, and if we want to be recognized, we've got to have content out there, or we're basically invisible in a digital world. We also talked about the ability of the city, and Ann in particular, to use tools like Placer AI to figure out baseline traffic to our enterprises, whether we're public, private, or nonprofit enterprises. Placer AI is frighteningly effective in identifying traffic. In fact, it can even say household income, age ranges, ethnicity. Sorry, it's a lot of Patriot Act kind of crazy stuff going on there, so it's cool to use in a good way for truth, justice, and the American way. And then we also learned how to do some queries, AI queries. In fact, if you have a phone, I would say don't turn off your cell phone. Instead, go to one of the AI platforms, because we might have some opportunities to do some on-the-fly AI queries, which could be really fun. So my favorite 3 are Liner.com, Gemini.google.com, and ChatGPT.com. So if you guys have one of your favorites, you can open it up. At the next mixer, we really went deep. Like, we talked about, hey, if we are not aligning what we're doing with our natural calling, we're going to be working too hard. And our heads like to tingle around the things we enjoy. If we tune into the radio, we're called to something. If we walk in a bookstore, we're drawn to something. And we're all different, so we might as well align whatever we're doing with our side hustle or enterprise with what we're naturally drawn to as human beings, and we all have our own thing. So if we do that, then when we're sleeping, we're thinking about our work. When we're working, we're thinking about our work. When we're playing, we're thinking about our work, and we get 3x the attention to the business effortlessly, joyfully, which is cool. So if we haven't done that and we're in a miserable job that we hate, all we have to do is sort of steer in the right direction about 1% a day, and by the end of the year, we'll be like 37x there, which is cool. So then we talked about having LinkedIn profiles, and I think our region is underrepresented on LinkedIn, which is tragic in my view, because LinkedIn is used to great effect by recruiters, by people who are looking for investments, for a lot of things. And so we know a lot about how to set up LinkedIn profiles. If you don't have one, make an appointment, we'll get one. And we also talked about the minimum viable website, which basically says, hey, this is what we do as a business and what we offer, and this is why you should believe we're telling the truth, and here's our call to action. So if we don't have a website with those 3 basic things, we're probably not being as effective as we can. So in tonight's, we talked a little bit about hypotheses in the last session, and we basically said, let's have a hypothesis that everything we think about is a hypothesis. There's always information we don't know. And so we want to figure out how do we really grow a business quickly? And so the hypothesis for tonight is that by imagining what our future network is and growing toward that network, and by imagining what our market is that we can get for our public, private, or nonprofit enterprise, and by imagining what our financials could be, we're really creating a future that is beneficial for us. We also talked about my favorite scumbag and my favorite hero. So that's not really nice, but I'm not a big fan of this guy because people forgot that part of the ability of an enterprise is to contribute to a better functioning society. So this other dude, Peter Drucker, figured that out and said, because he lived through some really bad times in Nazi Germany and the rise of the communist era, And so he said, you know what, if you're going to do a business, why not create a customer who's wholesome and contributing to a better functioning society? So that's kind of a cool thing to do. So we're going to start on that premise. And the cool thing about doing that is it makes a business that doesn't have so many bumps in the road because it's sort of aligned with what's good for society and there aren't as many people dissing it. All right, so this is a lot of words. We'll have this available. You can study it later. But basically, whether you're doing a side hustle or a startup or a social benefit enterprise, if we are not making our customers more enlightened, more empowered, and more effective, we're missing opportunities. So even if we're serving ice cream or we're putting someone up in a hotel, if they have a good night's sleep, they're probably going to feel more enlightened, empowered, and effective the next day. If the ice cream's particularly healthful and delicious, and you're giving me a this.
I'm sorry, the door's about to slam.
Oh, I see. So if whatever it is, it doesn't really matter what it is, there is an opportunity for us to create uplift in the way we're delivering value. And if we don't want to do that, the alternative is go on the dark web and be a true villain and scumbag and make tons of money, and that's an option. So I'm suggesting there's another conscious option, which is contributing to the greater good. So we're going to operate on that hypothesis, and we talked about that sweet spot of our life's calling where we're right where our personal lives, our professional lives, and our public personas combine, and we try to figure out something that we're uniquely good at that point of convergence and deliver value there. So we've talked also about the rule of three, and we talked about a mission statement in a prior event, and we basically said if we're having a mission statement, we need to say, hey, these are the three major customers or personas, the buyer personas, buyers who have budget authority, need, and time pressure to buy, who aren't just blowing smoke. And so we figure out who those three are for our organization. And then we want to get into our unique selling propositions or value propositions. And we want to figure out what would we say to the fear-based buyer, what would we say to the practical buyer and to the visionary buyer. And they want to hear different things. So fear-based people really want to know about pain points and how to alleviate pain points, their pain avoidance. And then practical buyers want to know about needs, and visionary buyers need to know about aspirations. So if we were selling the city of Raton, we'd want to make sure we were addressing anyone who might be incoming based on that. For example, Ann and I went out to California and we talked to a bunch of Gen Z kids, and we know one of their fear problems is, what am I doing with my life and how am I ever going to have a house or a family? I can't afford anything. And so for those fear-based buyers, we have the ability to pitch the city on the basis of their renewed American dream here, which is amazing. And they responded very well to that. So today we're going to talk about Porter's 5 forces. How many people have heard of that ever, Porter's 5 forces? Maybe in a distant past somewhere, so we'll talk about that. It's a really great way to build a network. We're going to have a little diagram that says this is what Porter's 5 forces is, and then it's such a central thing to building a vibrant business that we can either work in for the rest of our lives or hand to our kids or sell. And then we're also going to talk about how to do these market forecasts for our buyers with BANT. And you'll remember BANT is budget, authority, need, and time pressure, because if they don't have budget, authority, need, and time pressure, they're not really buyers. So we really have to think about who are we serving and whether they're able to buy. And then we'll talk about pro forma financial statements. Does that sound good to everyone? All right, let's go it. So this is Porter's 5 forces. I don't know if you guys can read this. The first top circle over here says suppliers. So whatever business we're in, we've got suppliers. For example, in the city, I just mentioned Placer AI as a tool we use in the city. So Placer AI gives us a raw ingredient, which is software, that we can use to make our city more competitive. So whatever our business is, if we're in the motel business, what are some of our suppliers? Maybe the people who give us linens. Maybe the people who do landscaping.
No, that's me.
That's you. Okay. And so then we also have important buyers. Those are our three personas. We have competitors that we're dealing with. We have new entrants who might have a bunch of investment behind them or something, and they could be a little scary. And sometimes there's just absolute substitutes for what we're doing altogether. So this thing right here is called Porter's Five Forces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 forces here. And if we're starting a business or we're trying to revive a business, it's very helpful to really think about who those individuals are. And for me in particular, I want to really look at the edges of any market. So I want to know, like, who's pioneering and who's a market leader, who's disrupting and who's dominating. And I really want to pay attention to those folks. So if I have, let's say, an outdoor recreation style business, I want to start thinking about who's coming out with the most pioneering gear and who are the market leaders in gear. Who are the most pioneering buyers and who are the sort of established buyers, right? And who are the most pioneering new entrants and so on. And the reason I want to do that is if I'm really committed to contributing as much as I possibly can contribute in life, there might come a point where I realize I have exceeded my own capacity to deliver value, and that I'm on the right track, but I really need someone else to acquire the business or invest in the business for me to be able to take it to the next level. And maybe there are other people in the marketplace who like that Milton Friedman dude, who I'm not a fan of, and they think it's all about shareholder value. And frankly, if I'm going to benevolently kick their butt, I need to be able to somehow get more money and have the resources to expand and contribute more and more value. So it's not about the money. The money's the byproduct of good stewardship. And so what we're saying here is any one of these players has the ability to partner with us or invest in us or acquire us, or we could acquire them. So if we're operating right in this middle, we can always get acquired by the person supplying to us, or we might acquire them. They can acquire us, we can acquire them. Same with our buyers. They could acquire us, we could acquire them. And so we want to create a network and have a vision about this network we're creating, so we're possibly getting the most value from all those pivots. Can anyone think of a good example of that?
Not locally, I'm trying.
So let's take the outdoor rec. Can we do that? All right, Shane. So Shane, who's the most pioneering gear provider in your space?
It depends on what division you're looking into. I would probably say under canvas or someone like that in the outdoor recreation glamping space.
The glamping space is who?
Under canvas.
Under canvas. Okay. Under canvas is the most pioneering. So if Shane one day woke up and said, I got to pivot, like, he might go to them and say, hey, do you want to get a piece of the action in my business? Or do you want to buy my business? Or he might get so big that he says, I'm going to buy them. Or he might say, I'm going to figure out a better way to partner with them. And then there's probably a market leader in the space too. Who would that be?
It's so flux at the moment, changing, that whole white space is changing a lot. There's new talents going in and the old talents going out.
So he's saying the whole space is changing a lot. So if he wants to really know what's going on, he's going to watch the pioneers and the market leaders. If the market leaders start slipping, it means that something that used to be true no longer is, and he might pivot to the pioneers. Or if they start blowing it, then he might double down on the market leaders. And so that's how he would use this particular model. Can someone else think of an example of this? Sai, you want to jump in? Like, you have vending machines. And in your vending machines, who's doing the most cool thing with vending machines in the world? Select Vend is the cool pioneer. Well, they're not. They're the market leader? Oh, they're the powerhouse. They're the gorilla. Right. And then who's thinking faster than they are, like super nimble, super clever.
They have such a focus on the industry, I don't even consider anyone else.
So maybe there's a hidden pioneer somewhere who's doing something amazing with vending machines, and that would be the thing to do, is try to figure out who's disrupting that industry.
So maybe they are the disruptors, because any other ones that are no longer there, they've brought in new technology. So like my
So they're competing with themselves, is what you're saying. They're putting their old models out of business, and they're bringing new stuff in.
them or their competitors.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because like my machines, I don't have to go count.
So,
I log in my computer, I see them, and
so he's saying that they're not only providing machines, they've gone upstream, right? They were here just doing vending machines, and they went upstream and they started figuring out how are we going to take the counting, or maybe they went into new entrants and they said, how can we automatically do inventory in these machines? And they did a pivot themselves. So you can sort of get a sense of how to do this. So what we want to do is basically look at who are the current market leaders in our space, and this is true with cities too. Right? So who are the market-leading cities in New Mexico? Who are the market-leading cities in the world? Who are the game-changing pioneers among the cities? And for each of them, we want to figure out who's supplying them, whether it's a city we're talking about or our business. Who are the competitors? Who are the suppliers, the buyers, the entrants, new entrants, and substitutes? And we want to try to find 3 players in each of those spaces. Remember last time how we were talking about the basis of competition, how there's usually someone who's super customer intimacy oriented, someone who's a cost leader, and someone who's like product excellence, those 3 things. So it can really help to try to figure out, if we're looking at competitors and the current market leaders, who's providing the most cool product, who's providing the lowest cost product, who's providing the best service, and try to get, this is a lot of contacts, right? So imagine we're doing a side hustle, we're about to start a business. If we just do this, think about how many contacts we have. And one way to build this, remember how we were talking about LinkedIn profiles and how important they are? So if we have our mission, we have our LinkedIn profile, we have our website like we talked about last time, and now we start looking at the profiles of the individuals in these organizations, they get to see who's looking at them. And so very quickly, we become recognizable to the market leaders and the pioneers in our space deliberately, way more quickly than we would if we just accidentally set out to do our business and didn't try to get this kind of Porter's 5 Forces footprint in our space with the most influential players in the marketplace. So that's why we wanted to do everything we did last week about the mission, last time about the mission statement and the LinkedIn profile and the website. And now we're making ourselves known. We're doing it subtly, but we're making sure the right people know who we are, and we'll talk about the caution that's appropriate for that. So once we get that kind of footprint, we also want to talk about how big the market is that we're trying to pursue. So if we have someone who's doing vending machines, if you were trying to figure out your total addressable market, like how many people could you, if you had unlimited resources, serve with your vending machines in the whole world? It'd probably be every place that has electricity or could have electricity and has a place for a vending machine. That would be the total addressable market, the entire sort of universe of folks that without resource constraints you could serve. But that's maybe not realistic, because maybe you don't want to go to Ghana and Africa and set up vending machines. So you might want to say, what's the market segment that's worth pursuing eventually? And you get to decide. You might say, hey, it's the whole United States. Maybe you know government, so it's all the municipal locations in the whole United States. Or maybe you know rural America, so you say, I'm gonna imagine that it's rural American county offices and city offices and hotels, wherever it is you have. And then you want to say, what is realistic? So maybe it's Colfax County. Maybe it's the southern part of Colorado. So that's what we're doing here, is really deciding how big could we be. And that's important because remember the Porter's Five Forces? Our rivals, who might be invisible to us right now, they could decide that their share of market they could realistically pursue is what we want. So we really have to have visibility into how big could we be theoretically, who's playing in that big domain, and then how big might we hope to be realistically, and then how big should we be right now. And we're always looking left, right, front, back, up, down, just making sure nobody's coming into our space without invitation. So that's what we're doing. And we want to find the market by the buyer with BANT. What's BANT again? Budget, authority, need, and time pressure. So we are trying to define the market. So I'm guessing for vending machines, there's someone you get to ask, hey, can I put a vending machine here? So that's probably the buyer. And sometimes vending companies, and I don't know if you do this or not, so forgive me if I'm like revealing a trade secret, you can chew me out after. So sometimes vendors will say, hey, we'll give a percentage of the sales to you if you let us put the vending machine in. So whatever that buyer is, we need a person, like a person with a checkbook, because they have to have that budget, authority, need, and time pressure. And that's how we define our market. So we don't say how many buildings are there. We say how many decision makers are there who can enable the transaction that is going to put money in our pocket, that enables us, no margin, no mission, that enables us to do our mission, whatever our mission is.
So how do you, within this, so when you're in a small town like this, how do you apply these principles in thinking about?
Yeah, that would be on the Porter Five Forces piece. So in the middle of Porter's Five Forces, we had the rivals in our space. And like I said, the main competitive shifts are around, and the reason these are the main shifts is people usually have a preference for one or the other. So some people want to walk into, let's say it's a brewery, right? Some people want to walk in and have the Cheers experience where everyone knows their name. And some want to get blasted out of their minds cheaply. And some want to have the best beer they've ever had. And so you can imagine in any city it would be reasonable to have three different sort of ale sellers, right? One of them, amazing beer. One of them, get drunk on a dime. And one of them, everybody knows your name, right? So that's it, that rivalry right in the middle. Those are the three major pivots. There are lots of other pivots we could do as a follow-on core meeting.
I do want to tell people that instead of...
That's a much better word.
And so I always operate...
So we'll write a letter to Porter and tell him, dude, you got to change that word in the middle. She was saying that it's, thank you so much for reminding me to repeat that. So she was saying, why call it a rivalry if you're trying to serve the market and everyone has a slightly different position and everyone's aligned with their own mission? It's not competition, it's collaboration. The only limit on that is you don't want to collude around price because that'll get you in jail. Other than that, I think you're in pretty good shape on the collaboration model. And we should probably write Porter a little letter if he's still alive. I don't know if he is.
I was just going to give you a little context. So with the vending machines, it's 30 or more employees.
Ah, nice.
So if it doesn't meet that criteria, it's already
So he's saying it's 30 or more employees have to be in the building for him to put a vending machine in. And who are your three personas? Who are the three types of buyers with budget, authority, need, and time pressure who would let you put the machine in? Managers of the business manager or owner.
What it is I'm providing a service for various reasons for vending, but then I only give the percentage to governmental entities.
I see. So
It's a public, I mean, sure, I'm making money, but it's a public service that they allow me to put it there and I give back.
yeah, and so
Some of the, like the funds I have go to help with the murals and
So he's giving an explanation of what it is he's providing. And if I imagine the 3 pain points, 3 needs, and 3 aspirations, the pain point is employees are starving and they have a meeting. And if they don't have some food before they go into the meeting, their head's going to be foggy. They're going to do a worse job, right? We could think about the needs. Maybe sometimes we have meetings last minute, we need to have food there. Aspirations might be, let's say if you had super healthy vending machines and a particular government entity was working on the health of their employees, you could be facilitating that. So you can see the pain points, needs, and aspirations there. Yes?
And I wanted to just kind of add on to the idea of competitors versus
So hang on, let me just say that because I have to put this on. So she's saying, yeah, it's all good and well to have collaboration, and it's also, so that's great, and it's also important to recognize that at any point in time, there might be limited dollars available for the purchase of whatever it is we're selling. So, your point?
So like in Trinidad, the more galleries, the better, to a point.
Great to have more galleries in Trinidad, and but.
If you get someone to come to town who has
So he has agents who have different scope of authority, and so if he's got some guy who can't issue liquor licenses or insurance for that,
So I'll say, let me help you out.
he'll help him out.
I'm not going to go after your business because
I won't steal your customer.
I'm not going to steal your customer, but I'm going to help you with what you cannot do.
That's great. So he's filling in the gaps in the other players' offering. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
More things that did, what she said about the art galleries,
So we're piggybacking.
highway and stop where they wouldn't before, all just one place.
Oh, that's good.
Off the highway and they see Willow Springs first because it's closest, but they don't have as good a selection, whether they're new or whether that's their.
That's really cool. So they want a whole corridor of Budleys to be able to. That's great. Stoner Row. Nice. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Cy was saying if you give them more choices, they're more likely to purchase. Is that what you said? Yep. Okay. That's beautiful. So Sandra's saying she went around and made sure everything she was doing was complementing, not competing with the other players in town. So Sandra's saying she's making sure she's stocking what complements other people, what they're stocking. She's not competing. She refers to them. They refer to her. Everyone loves that everyone's nice. Yeah.
This is what's what
And people say, what a lovely town. People collaborate. That's beautiful. Okay, so we're basically just trying to make sure that you can imagine in trying to figure out our market size, we're going to have certain attributes, certain characteristics of the total addressable market. So let's say the total addressable market is vending machines worldwide. So our attributes at that level would be very large. Like this is a place that has more than, let's just say this is a place that has employees. It doesn't have to be more than 30, right? So the total addressable market is a place where you can put a vending machine that has people who are hungry and can stock food that people want to eat, basically. So your segmentation criteria, if you were thinking about your persona, would be anyone who thinks it would be good to have convenient food stocked in a building. And then if we start getting into our serviceable addressable market, let me just go back and make sure that we kind of spent some time on this. So this is like broad, everyone in the whole bucket. And this is a scoop that someday we could drink, and then this is what we're going to sip on right away, right? So now what we really want to do is we want to get pain points and needs and aspirations for all of those. So let's say we're thinking of creating a new orange juice brand, and our total addressable market is going to be 8 billion people who might be thirsty. Like if we had unlimited resources, we might be able to convince 8.2 or 3 billion, whatever it is today, people to drink our orange juice brand. But that's not really realistic. So maybe we say our serviceable, addressable, or serviceable available market is people in the United States who might be interested in drinking something, orange juice in particular. And then our serviceable obtainable market might be people who would drink the particular kind of orange juice that we're interested in producing. So we produce a low pulp, 10x vitamin C orange juice, and so our serviceable obtainable market would be sort of disciple obsessive compulsive people who want to get hypervitamins for their workouts or something like that, and that's what we'd focus on. And then we want to get into what the pain points and the needs and the aspirations are for all of those people. Can you see how we're developing really a very sophisticated understanding of the nuances in the market, right? So yeah, we're going to do orange juice, but we're going to target a particular geography or demographic or psychosocial profile, and then we're going to get into really what drives someone to buy that particular orange juice versus another. What are the exact pain points, needs, and aspirations? So let's think about that for a minute, really the lower level here. So who buys orange juice here? Who likes pulp? Who likes no pulp? You were embarrassed about no pulp? Oh, you like pulp and no pulp. You're indifferent. Okay, and who likes from concentrate? Who likes fresh? Okay. And so if you think about, like, those were just generic things, not really needs. So what are the pain points, needs, and aspirations behind that? Like, I would say the pain point is if I don't like pulp, it's going to make me gag, and I don't want to gag when I'm drinking orange juice in front of people, right? So my fear or my pain point is I don't want to have something that's going to make me gross out, right? And that's the underlying fear. Now, we're not going to say orange juice that makes you not gag, but we do have to understand what it is emotionally that's causing someone to buy the pulp versus the non-pulp orange juice. So who would pay a lot more for orange juice, a lot more if it had some special attribute? Like if I knew, go ahead. Okay, so proven clinically effective orange juice, you would pay more. Yeah, like it's food is medicine. That's awesome. All right, so that's kind of the aspirational market. Can you kind of hear that? And for me, I would probably pay a lot more if I knew that orange juice was squeezed within the last 24 hours. Like if it said on the label, squeezed in, I'd be like, you know how awesome it is when you drink amazing fresh orange juice? It's not the same as from the carton, right? So I'd pay more for that. So that's what we're trying to get at here in whatever market we're in, is really nuanced understanding of what's driving people. Let's talk about motels for a second. So what are the fears and the needs and the aspirations of motel people? Bed bugs is a fear, she said. You sure that's not aspirational?
The need is a good night's rest.
So sleep, get me some sleep, a good night's rest.
Yeah. And what's the other one?
Aspirational? I mean, you're by a shooting range.
Yeah. I was going to ask for me or for them. So my aspiration would be to have more people who are into outdoor recreation.
So her aspiration is trying to appeal to the outdoor rec people. So if she were trying to do that aspirationally, what would they need to hear about her place? Maybe she has an outlet for Shane and Sandra in her motel where all the stuff they might need for outdoor recs right there. Or there's a little tram, to get over to their place to get that stuff. Or
Trail starts next door.
yeah, that's great. All right, so I think we get the picture, yeah? All right, so now we're going to use our figures about our buyers with budget authority, need, and time pressure. right? And so what we're trying to do now is say anything someone's going to buy, there's generally a buyer's journey involved. How many of you have heard about buyer's journeys before? So buyer journey, the basic way that I've heard it explained, if anyone has a better way to explain it, that'd be great. But the beginning is people don't know what they don't know. It's not on their radar. And then all of a sudden they hear Raton pass. And they hear that it had something to do with Santa Fe, and some people think it's cool. And now it's on their radar. And they just kind of have a mental note. But all of a sudden, they're planning a vacation, and they hear someone talk about Raton Pass again. And now they're interested. And then maybe it's coming close to their vacation date. Now they start searching, what is the Raton Pass, and how does that compare to the Grand Canyon or New York City? Like, what really do I want to do with my time? And then they start figuring out what motel they might want to go to, or where they might want to eat, or what beer place they're going to get. Are they going to get trashed or great beer? And so they're going all the way down until they finally make the purchasing decision. And then after they make the purchasing decision to stay at the motel, go to the adventure center, go to the vending machine, get some help with marketing, I don't know, stay at the Delicio building, whatever it is they're doing. So they afterwards, they've had an experience that was great or not great, and then they're going to tell their friends or not tell their friends. So what we're going to try to do is figure out how many people there are in each group. If we have a total addressable market for vending machines of most of the developed world, that's a lot of people here. And if we're going to narrow the scope and try to figure out who would really be interested in vending machines here, we've got to get some information to them. So let's say we have maybe we don't have 8.2 billion, maybe we have 3 billion people who could potentially they wouldn't be the vending machine decision maker. Let's say we have 100 million people who could be decision makers. They're unaware of the offering. We're going to broaden awareness in some manner. So what would be our method for broadening awareness? Learn about the new vending machine, whatever it is. So now we've put vending machines on the map, and now they're aware of a category of buyers. So it's not 100 million or 300 million. We're now down to, say, 50 million. And now we have to get them to the next level of the buyer journey by giving them information in some way. So for every stage of the buyer journey, what we're trying to do is say, how many people are we starting with at that level of the buyer journey? And what information do they need in what form and through what channel to be able to get to the next level of the buyer journey? Did I explain that in a way that makes sense? So when we're done, we're going to see these numbers shrink, and we're going to figure out how do we broaden awareness, how do we create interest and facilitate research, how do we differentiate the offering and prompt request for a proposal or pricing or whatever, how do we deliver the proposal, how do we close deals and get paid, how do we reinforce the value someone got so that they start to get more of what we're doing, maybe they come here again. How do we engage the buyers in mutual brand building, and how do we create new offerings? And so for each of those stages, we need unique communications, which should be in whatever medium that buyer likes. So if it's Gen Zs, maybe we're putting the messaging out on TikTok, right? If it's older people, maybe we're dropping flyers off at every door. Right? We have to figure out how do we package the information, what medium are we using, and what communication channel to push those buyers to the next level so that we get as many, we're trying to push them down, right? Get as many people making decisions and loving what we do as possible. Now, what I've noticed is a lot of businesses forget how many stages there are in the buyer journey. So they might have 5 marketing assets that all relate to let's say, differentiating, offering, and prompting RFPs, but they forgot that they have to tell people about what they do. So very expensive marketing, but nobody is even looking at it, right? So this is really important to kind of do an assessment of how we're promoting, and I think of this as someone doing economic development for the city. Like, how many people even know about New Mexico? How many people think New Mexico is another country, right? We know that. So how do we get them to know it's in the United States and have a sense of where it might be? And then how do we get them to have interest in it? And we have to move them all the way down all of that if we're going to think we're going to get them to move here. You had some kind of epiphany, or
Yeah, because
You-
I was, who can I serve? So I go for, I've been targeting.
you're thinking, who can you serve? Smaller market.
Serve,
Mm-hmm.
and then I want to go up, to get the, grow out.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying you do bottom up. Same thing.
I do the bottom.
Sure, that works too.
Everything you get with the one-on-one, and then you
Sure.
build up.
How many people right now are having kind of a sick gut sense that they might have forgotten some of the cells over here? Anyone? It's a bummer, right? Like all of a sudden, oh my gosh, that could be the missing link. So she's worried about being too like one of those awful salespeople who just makes you want to throw up. So I get that, right? Now this is going back to the mission thing that we were talking about before. The thing about being in a field that is genuinely our mission is we develop a sense of obligation about getting the word out. If you know your motel doesn't have bed bugs and the other one does, then you are doing a massive service to many people, because I've been in bad motels, I get that problem, by letting them know what you're about. So I think it is, I'm going to go out on a limb here and just say the pride is in the not putting the word out on the amazing, unique offering that you do, because you're worried about what people think about you instead of what you can do for them, and how important it is to get the word out so you can be of service to them. So it's just a mind shift to go, wait a minute, this isn't about what they think of me, it's about me offering service to them that's going to help them. So I think that's just a mind shift. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about financial statements, and we're like 45 minutes in, so I'll try to get through this quickly. There's a lot of heavy stuff in here. So the main thing to understand about financial statements is it's important for us to learn them eventually. On LinkedIn, they have like a 1-hour course that by the Stacy's, I think, that is really cool and makes it really easy to understand. And then you can do the 3-hour Stacy course, the Stacy Brothers or something. But basically, cash flow statements are just a way of figuring out how much money did we have when we started, how much did we spend, how much do we have at the end, so that we don't run out of money. Because it's not enough that we know we're going to sell a bunch of stuff. Let's say we're doing artisan manufacturing. Just making it up. So we're doing some kind of artisan manufacturing. We got to have enough money to buy the raw materials, to pay our workers, to pay the rent for wherever we are, and be able to keep the business running. And we can't necessarily wait until someone buys what we have and gives us money, because we could run out of money before we get there. Does that make sense? So cash flow is all about making sure that we have enough money to stay in business. You were going to ask something.
Oh, I was out just worried about product availability in the coming months.
So we can talk about product availability in another meeting. That'll be great. So that's like forecasting availability of raw materials, or what the rate of purchasing is, and so on. So we can talk all about that. Income statements are really figuring out how much money are we going to retain. So if we're in business, no margin, no mission, we really need to have money at the end, because if we don't, we can't keep contributing to the world. So we got to make sure that we have retained earnings. And then the balance sheet is really figuring out, how do we measure the value of this entity that we've created? How can we say how much it's worth? How much someone might invest in it, whether it would be a good investment. So balance sheets really help with that, having a sense of, hey, our assets in this business are growing, And our liabilities are small, but the equity that we have or that our shareholders have, meaning the ownership, is growing and growing and growing, right? So those are really good things to do. So what we have here, and we can make this handout available, we do have one of these that's a little bigger than this. You can see our cash flow comes from our operations itself, like making things and selling them. Also from investing, so if we have extra money and we're putting that money in something and that money's creating a return for us, we get cash from investment, and also from financing things. So if we could have loans that we're getting, or stocks or bonds that we're issuing to get money into the company. So those are all cash flow related. And then income statement is really revenue. Now I hear lots of people who didn't go to business school, we get these words mixed up, right? So someone would say, oh, I have really good revenue. Revenue is really the selling, like how much money is coming in at the top. And we figure out how much money are we getting from selling things. Then we have to figure out what is the cost, the direct cost of that thing that we sold. And if the direct cost of the thing that we sold is higher than the price, we had a problem. So the first check on whether we have a viable business is the cost of the goods that we're selling less than the revenue we're getting, because then we have a gross profit and we have a chance of staying in business. But then we have to think about, oh yeah, I have to pay for the place too, like there's overhead, right? So then we have to say, okay, we had this gross profit, now we have to subtract the overhead. And if we subtract the overhead and we still have an operating profit, that's pretty cool, right? That's good. A lot of us don't spend the time when we're developing a business to think, what's my price? What's the cost of the goods that I'm selling? What's my gross profit? What's my overhead? What's my operating profit? Somewhere there can be a real problem there. And very often it is the operating profit level, like we are spending too much on overhead, right? So we got to figure out how to make sure we have favorable numbers all the way down. And then if we retain earnings, meaning after we got the operating profit and we paid our taxes and everything, we still have some kind of net profit earnings, then that would be retained earnings that stays in the business, and it creates value, right? We can invest in another round or another production lot of the artisan manufacturing that we're doing. Has anyone here ever run out of money in a business? It's uncomfortable, right? So even though this kind of, if you're not a math person, this can be a little intimidating, you really can do it on the back of a napkin. And what I've found is that when there's a problem, the problem is really obvious. Like if we really say, what is the revenue? What's the cost of goods sold? What's the gross profit? What's the overhead? What's the operating profit? If we spend the time, we can see the problem coming. We really can. All right, so we'll stop, we'll go out down from there. This is the holy grail of financial forecasting. Now, what is this? It's a spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet. We can do it manually too, but this will make your life so much easier, and we have copies of these for you if you want them. And basically, this is a calculator that automatically calculates lots of things at once. So let's say you're doing artisan manufacturing and you're making bows and arrows that look like, I don't know, whatever, bows and arrows. So the first item might be some kind of sinew, some kind of cord or something. So we have an item that has a dollar value for the raw material. And so we would say, let's say it costs $1. So $1, and this is each for the little string. And we would say how many of them we're gonna have. And then we might say how many we're gonna be selling a month and how many months are in a year. And so each of these descriptions lets us do separate multiplication on every line. And it will automatically total here. at the end. So we could have the cost of the string, the cost of the bow, the cost of the arrow, the cost of the arrowhead, and all the dynamics of what drives the cost can be different. We can have up to 6 different factors that are being multiplied together, and if there are only 2 factors, everything else is a 1 and it multiplies perfectly. We also have a little select column. So if we find there's something that's too costly, we can unselect that and it won't add up at the far end. So this is like truly will make any kind of forecasting so much faster for you. Did I explain this okay? Can you kind of see that? So the thing about the green and the yellow, the green is basically a cell that you put data into that's important data, and and green means go, so go ahead and put your number in there. And yellow is caution. It means it's driven by a formula, so don't mess with that cell. Let it do its thing and stay away from it, right? So going back to our chart, we're going to put what the item is. So the reason we have category is we might say bow and arrow, right? That's the product we're making. And then the items are all the raw materials going into the product. And we can decide which ones we're going to turn on or off in our total value column by doing select or unselect. And it either will put a total there or won't, depending on whether we select. Can you see how helpful that could be for forecasting?
Would you do the same for people, like if you're just service-based and you're not?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'd say, let's say you're doing one of the 3 bars that's going to be in town, right? And we have to figure out, okay, we need someone behind the counter. What are they going to cost? How many of them do we need? Maybe we're running 3 shifts, because who knows? And so we would have all those multipliers for the people as well. We can use the same thing for calculating overhead. So this calculator will make your life so easy. And you can play around with it, while you're on hold for the phone company or something. All right, so now we get into revenue forecast. Now we're going to show just quickly how we would use this. So it's nice to think about product, services, and solutions, even if we're in a product business, because we can see the pivots under Porter's 5 forces. I'll explain that later, but basically, trust me when I say try to think of at least 3 products, 3 services, and 3 solutions that you can offer. So products goes without saying, services goes without saying. Solutions are usually programmatic, some kind of program offering overall. And so if we have 3 products, 3 services, 3 solutions, our category is which persona in this case. Which persona are we serving? So persona 1 likes product 1, persona 2, product 2, and so on all the way down. And then we say, what's the value? So let's say this is a consulting firm. I'm just making it up. And they charge $3.75 an hour. And they're going to sell 5 units a week. For 52 weeks a year, you can see what the value is automatically for that particular product offering. Can you see that? I shouldn't have said it was a consulting firm, but let's say they have a toolkit they're selling for $375. So it automatically adds up. And can you see how there's some variability in how many columns we're using for the description? Okay, so this says the categories, the personas, persona 1, 2, and 3. And we have 3 products, product 1, 2, and 3, service 1, 2, and 3, solution 1, 2, and 3. We basically have a selling price because we're in the revenue forecast right now. So this is the selling price. This is what it is we're selling: units, hours, programs, because units are products, hours are service, programs are solutions. And then we're saying how many are we selling per unit of time. So this one is 5 units sold a week. This one is 10 hours per contract. This is 8 programs sold per month, right? So each description column lets you put whatever's relevant. So you get all kinds of ways of describing what you're doing. And then here we say, okay, if we're selling 5 units a week and we want to know what our annual revenue is, we better multiply that by the number of weeks in a year. So we put 52 weeks a year, and by golly, we have almost $100,000 just off that product, just selling 5 a week. That's kind of cool, right? So very quickly we can see, I mean, we just built a $2.5 million business here. And the numbers are not big. Can you see how the numbers are not big, right? And so we're going to be trying to figure out, you know, what is the cost of providing that. So we would then use a very similar model where we're doing what is the cost of goods sold. And you can't see this, I know, so I'm going to talk you through it. So basically we're going to say labor. So there's some labor going into that product. And we have some, I can't even read it myself, we have some toolkit. We have the direct cost of the facility we're in. We have some utility costs that are directly associated with the product we're producing. So we'd be producing this for each product, each service, each solution. We'd have a separate sheet for each one, right? So if we had 3 products, 3 services, 3 solutions, we're going to have 9 cost of goods sold sheet. And you can see what goes into it is like manufacturing overhead or the cost of getting the raw materials shipped if we're doing artisan manufacturing, direct labor and packaging. Those are the things we're calculating. Why? Because we have to separate the revenue, or we have to take the revenue we're going to get from that product and subtract the cost of goods sold so that we know we have a gross profit. Does that make sense? So we have to break down what is the direct cost of providing that product, service, or solution. What is the cost, the direct cost, not the overhead. What's the direct cost of providing that product, creating that product, service, or solution so that we can take our selling price, subtract the direct cost, and know that we have some money left over. That's the beginning of business. If we don't have gross profit, we're toast. Does that make sense? True of nonprofits, true, right? Everything. So any questions? Did anyone fog out and they're like, I'm not a math person, this sucks? Are we okay? Yeah, okay. All right. All right, so we have some not math people. So if we're trying to figure out the cost of goods sold, we'll just talk through the overhead. So overhead has a really goofy name in business school. Whoever invented it, they're not a good person, and I wish I could do something about it. But they called overhead selling, general, and administrative expenses instead of just saying overhead. That's a lot of words. Who cares? And sometimes they call it SG&A. And so for the overhead, we're going to do the same thing. So if we're running a business, there's generally 6 major functions that we have to do in the business to be effective. We have to do strategic and general management, competency management, making sure we're super good at the thing we do, innovation management, marketing management, financial management, and operations management. Now, operations management, the cost of that's usually under the cost of goods sold. But these other things, very often they're overhead, right? And so now we have to go through the same base. Is there something I should be doing, or okay? Okay. So that'll recharge, but we're fine anyway because you couldn't read it anyway, so use your imagination. We're good. So in the SG&A, selling, general, and administrative expenses, we're trying to pick up all those other enabling functions in a business. And the reason we want to have calculators on all of those is because we said we're pricing the product properly, our cost of goods sold is less than our price, we have gross profit. However, can we afford, are the margins that are available from that gross profit, is that amount of money sufficient to cover our overhead? Now, how many of you have ever had a problem where the price, you were thinking, oh, I'm making all my money back on my raw materials, this is great. And then you forgot you have to pay for utilities and insurance and people and rent and, right? So whatever that margin is, that gross profit, it has to cover the overhead. We have to be selling enough things with a profit margin to cover the overhead. And if we do that well, we have a pretty good business. Like if we have an operating margin after we subtract off the selling, general, and administrative expenses, then we're in pretty good shape. So did we fog out on that, or did that make sense?
It's interesting in a tiny town like this
building of my business. So certainly
Right.
in a small town where you have so many owner-run businesses,
Mm-hmm.
where we're not anticipating having to add, say, 2 employees for the season.
So let me repeat back what you were saying because it has to go into the microphone. So basically what you're saying is the way you've operated your business to date has been really favorable to your buyer with budget authority, need, and time frame, the local buyer. And you're getting a spanking because you know you can, because you're running the business. You're not price gouging. And the challenge with having that level of generosity is you have limited your ability to move into Springer or Cimarron or Taos because you don't have the margin coming off of your selling price, right? The difference between the price and the cost of goods sold. You don't have enough margin to expand your business. And I would say that's a problem, right? So, and that is one of the economic challenges we have in a town like this. Now, one of the reasons we've been really encouraging people to use Etsy or Shopify or have an online presence is we have to get that gross profit up so we can grow the business. And we have to get the selling, general, and administrative expenses down so we have operating margin and ultimately retained earnings to be able to grow the business. If we go digital, what do you think's more expensive, having a building or a digital presence? Right? The building is more expensive, so our selling, general, and administrative expenses are going to be way higher if we're all bricks and mortar. If we have some digital marketing as well, the high margins off that business can be our cash cow that feeds the bricks and mortar. So you're saying that having a collaborative approach to this as a community can be incredibly helpful. And for real, you guys, if you like who likes the calculator? Who likes that stuff? But if you're sick enough to like the calculator and want to have a working session on calculating cost of goods sold, doing pricing, doing SG&A, we will run the working sessions to make that possible so that our enterprises here can be vibrant. And it doesn't take long when you're using that tool. It takes a heck of a long time if you're not using that tool. And then if you're using this tool and AI, it's super crazy fast. Because you could say to it, find the average selling price for bow and arrow strings, right? And it can go give you evidence-based. If you use Liner, it'll give you citations for the average selling price, which is great. Then you don't have to do the research. So if you guys want that, in one of these sessions, we will do that. So on the SG&A, you'd have things like the salaries for all of those non-production functions, the benefits for the non-production functions, the rent, the utilities, insurance, the cost of the accountant, the cost of the lawyer, right, all those professional services. So that's all the stuff we can't read on this chart that will be available in handouts. And so getting back to our three major statements, you can see how important it is to try to figure out, are we getting enough cash, enough retained earnings off this business on our income statement to be able to grow? And what I'm hearing you saying is, it's like you guys, both of you sort of had this, I don't want to hurt people with my pricing, right? And there's something like about finding your mission and really owning it that enables you to go, this is a fair price. And if this town can't afford it, then we figure out how to get some people online. If we want to be more charitable to the city, we have to find buyers who have the budget authority, need, and time pressure to pay a fair price for what we're doing. Yes?
What a lot of people don't understand, in a seasonal town like this, your prices in your peak season need to be able to cover your off-season.
So you're saying it's a seasonal market. We have winters here. Lots of people come out in the summer, and we got to make sure our pricing is going to cover the months where we have a low volume. Because even if we have a margin on what we're selling, if the volume of that margin is not big enough to cover our overhead, that's what you're saying. So you're saying the difference between the revenue and the cost of goods sold might be favorable, But if we don't have a big multiplier on that through the whole year, we better have some humongous multiplier in the summer that's going to cover the overhead for the winter where we don't have the same amount of revenue coming in.
Bad plastering, but your costs of doing business, like your rent,
Right.
and everything, are going to stay the same throughout the year.
So this is like there are cycles, some purchasing cycles or buying cycles. And so when we're running these financials, part of what we're figuring out is each month of the year, how much are we selling? What's the cost of the goods sold we sold that month? What's the gross profit? What's our overhead? What's the operating profit? And the cash flow is what tells us, holy smoke, every December I'm in big trouble. Right, because I still have my margin on the difference between the selling price and the cost of goods sold, but I don't have the volume to cover my selling, general, and administrative expenses, my overhead. That's why we have to do this kind of work. So like I said, if you guys are interested in getting working sessions around this, we can do it here. Probably our friends up in Trinidad would be willing to help us do it over there. We'll talk about the way to do that. And just remember, if your eyes were kind of bugging out or fogging over here, remember what we talked about in a prior session, which is everything's a hypothesis and we're always learning. There is no shame in this huge area that we don't even know what we don't even know exists. Right? We know what we know what we don't know. We think we know some stuff and we're full of baloney, like we might have thought we were a great business person, and then we go, oh my gosh, I don't even know the basics. And then we think we don't know stuff that we do know, like you know that there's cyclical issues. You might not have known what that problem relates to in business terms, but instinctively you knew that was something that was a problem, so you thought you didn't know. Who knows? Anyway, you know a lot, right? Just instinctively. This whole thing of doing this kind of work, in my view, in my hypothesis, is a moral issue, because we're here for a limited time, and if we do well at business and we're in an area that we're good at and we're trying to make a better functioning world, this is a moral issue. We're contributing, right? So we really do want to learn how to do this, and our major resources are time, talent, and treasure. That's what we have to offer. And if we collaborate as a community, it's going to make it much better. And so when we meet people, once we're done with this, we can say, for the, let's say, 30,000 people, I'm making that up, the 30,000 people who are prospective buyers of vending machines, who want to make sure their workers are well-fed and happy at work, I offer amazing vending machines so my customers experience highly productive employees, great meetings, and a percentage of the take. Making that up. So that's where we end up, and are there any questions?
So this is a seasonal product I bring out in the summer, and so let's take that bow and arrow shop. Most times when your business wants to make more money, you either have to add more products, more services, or sell more products to your current clientele. It's kind of a simple thing. So I think a lot of people need to think of, I make bows and arrows, okay? Can you make bow and arrow kits to sell? Can you actually sell parts of bow and arrows? Could you actually have a range where people can take the bow and arrow and be in the back part of the property? Can you do lessons with regards to that? Are there other things? And I always think what people need to do is, what would a competitor, you have those 5 things, how would a competitor be looking at your business? And you see a lot of times where somebody that's been the kingpin for a long time finds out that Google's the kingpin of their FaceTime, you're untouchable. They're the 800-pound gorilla. No one will touch them. But usually you'll have some disruptive small force out there that looks at it. You should always be looking at your business as if you were that disruptive force out there. And so I've found most times, whether you're in a small rural community or wherever, is you have your persona, and you actually know that you want to sell people more products, and they'll probably buy more things that are synergistic to your product or service. That's where you should be focusing your time. And most of the time, that helps with the seasonality, the pricing, and those kinds of things. And I just wanted to kind of throw those out there, because that's some of the things that we're
Those are great comments. And could you hear Porter's 5 forces and what he was saying? Can you hear why that having all those contacts and studying those contacts can help with the kinds of pivots he's talking about?
Is there a community calendar where all the events or local whatever is happening so we could, as an independence, piggyback or not go into attention competition at the same time? What's happening? As a newbie.
The Ratonian that started by Laura Brewer is a online,
Okay,
the
that's
Ratonian.com.
That has not met my
It has a,
business needs.
oh, okay.
Who is that? Pat. Who? Who are you?
Pat Weekender.
The Weekender? Yeah.
The Weekender.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a huge challenge. I work for the World Journal. So the World Journal is a tri-county newspaper, and we have an incredible events section.
Never even heard of you. That's
Right.
my point.
So if you Google World Journal, Huerfano World Journal, we cover Colfax County, Huerfano, and Los Animas County. And one of the issues here, I've been here 6 years, is that we have a split between the Facebook world and other worlds. There's several different places that people get information. There is not one the way there used to be 20 years ago when everybody read the newspaper. So even if we had everybody on Facebook, there would still be people like my parents who refused to join Facebook, who would never know what's going on unless I called them up and told them directly. So I think that we as a communities need to think really hard about all the different ways to communicate with Facebook users, non-Facebook users, people who read flyers in their mailbox. I think you were pointing to some of this. But there are some things to build on in this region that have been around for quite a while that I think would be.
So what I hear being said is remember the buyer journey, and when we have the numbers of people going down the buyer journey, so she's on a buyer journey basically. And what's happening is we're hearing that there are channels of communication and media with information, but we're somehow missing some of the cells on the buyer journey. So whatever her mode of communication is, whatever her preferred go-to, if it's Facebook or it's internet or it's flyers, she is not getting the information packaged in the media she needs at the level she needs to be able to walk all the way down to that bottom where she's getting what she needs for a transaction. Is that right?
And I'm a super user.
And she's a super user.
I used Facebook. I can't stand it, but
Yeah. So let's hold that thought.
Twitter, I have done the calendars. I know it goes.
So if you can hold the thought. So what we see from a community perspective is in our buyer journey of engaging all our business people and giving them the information they need to succeed, we have not filled in each of the cells on every one of those paths to make sure that we're systematic about the way we're getting people up to speed in the community and engaged. And so we have some work to do. Sandra? Right, so let me just echo what you just said. So we had a big car show this weekend, and you got some business off that car show, and you're basically saying the word wasn't out there. People didn't know. Yeah, so that's why we're having these meetings. Now, we have challenges and opportunities for Raton entrepreneurs. We really have challenges and opportunities for regional entrepreneurs, right? That's what we're building here. And we have the opportunity to have a working session and figure out what is going wrong. We have nonprofits dedicated to welcoming people to the community. They're working their tails off. What we don't have is this kind of chart really thought through in a strategic way. And I've been talking and talking. I feel like I talked your ears off tonight. I hope that you felt some sort of discipline, business discipline, and process in this. And hopefully there are a couple things that were eye-openers. If there's any aspect that you would like for Ann and me to create workshops out of, we are at your service. And I'll turn it over to Ann, who is behind the camera and nonetheless may be able to swing around in front and wrap us up for the evening. Any questions before we break?
Are we gonna get the slides?
Yes, you will get the slides. I am the holdup. I promised her I would. She didn't ask me to do this. I should fall on the sword because I'm the delay on the last set. So that's my distraction and failure there. So would you like to come around and say hello to everybody? Or goodbye to everybody, as the case may be? She's coming over. And again, I just want to have all of us, I think this was an inspired set of meetings that Anne created here. And so again, I just want to have us all thank her for that.
That was totally collaboration. That wasn't just my inspiration. I hope I'm in focus. But so thank you guys all for coming. I think it's been great. We've been growing. It's been really awesome to see some of you here month after month because it's been a progress of learning more and more things. Some of the things I knew, a lot of the things, this was totally new to me. So it was really great for me as well to be able to help all of you a lot better. Thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you next month. And one more big round for Cynthia, please.